grew up in Southern California, in a household where the only time we ever talked about God was before we ate. And my mom grew up as Catholic, but not practiced. And that's really the only time I've ever remembered God being mentioned. When I turned 18, I joined the Navy, and then lived my life in a way I probably, well, I'm glad I did, because now I know where I'm at. But beforehand, not so good.
I did not grow up in the church. We lived across the street from a church growing up. I don't really remember, ever talking about God or talking about Jesus. So the only way I learned about him was just from the little bit of Bible study that I had. And I don't really remember much of that either. When I first met him, our very first conversation we met online, talked back and forth a little bit. So our very first phone conversation, as soon as I said hello, the first words out of his mouth was, I've been married before. I don't want to get married again. I have a daughter and I don't want kids again. He's like, I'm screwed, aren't I? Like, that was what he said. I was like, slow down. Like, not necessarily, but.
She worked at a hospital in New York City. I was teaching martial arts at a school in New Jersey. We had a great time living there, kind of just living a very carefree boyfriend, girlfriend kind of live-in scenario. Mm-hmm. My daughter decided she wanted to come and live with us. She lived in Kuwait. She's lived overseas for the majority of her life. I saw how she was with her and how much they loved each other. And I couldn't let that go. And so I fell in love with her even more. And I asked her to marry me then. And in 2015, we made it official. Without Christ, all I cared about was pleasure and control. And that manifested in work, that manifested in personal relationships, and manifested in how I treated people. I was so into myself that I didn't even recognize how it affected anybody else. Didn't really care.
I was always looking for something more than me, something outside of me. And I think that's when I really started to dive into the witchcraft, because I got introduced to that long before I met him. Kind of dabbled around with it, for a few years, but then, it just kind of fell off. But, as you get older, life gets harder, you're looking for something. I could see the demonic hand in all of it, especially when it comes to the tarot cards. Because I couldn't start my day without pulling my tarot cards. Like, I would come down the stairs or come out of my bedroom if we were at the other house, and it was like it was a pull. Like, I had to go directly into that room and start my day, because that was going to tell me how my day was going to be. It was a definite addiction. But literally the moment I gave myself to Christ, that pull was gone. Like, I never felt that pull to go in there and touch those cards again.
I think that a lot of the stuff that I was doing was just as a response to childhood stuff and being divorced twice, and scenarios in my life that I'd gone through that I really don't want to think about anymore. And so I think I was escaping just with every day. She was escaping through that one outlet. I was just ignoring life in general, just trying to, how can I just get through it and not have to worry about anybody else.
When he told me that, he had given himself back to the Lord, and I remember just sitting there, just kind of looking at him like, oh, I was like, well, this is going to be interesting, because I had no idea what that entailed, or how the dynamic was going to be in our house anymore, because, God and witchcraft definitely didn't go together. I realize now when I look back on my life, like, I gave God credit for so many things in my life, but I never walked with him, never followed him. And so I went and I bought a Bible. I was reading it a little bit, but it was hard to understand. I didn't have anybody to teach me. But I remember I said to God, I was like, look, I said, if we're going to do this, I said, you got to give me something. I was like, I don't want to be one of those people who just says they have blind faith. Like, I need a reason why, all of a sudden after this many years, I'm changing my mind. Like, I need something to stand on, And I remember a couple days later, I was just scrolling through some YouTube videos, and a video came up called Cold Case Christianity. And I clicked on the video and I listened to J. Warner Wallace for about 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, God, I hear you. I was like, I'm in. Every time I drove by the church, even before I gave my life to him, I always felt a pull. Because there's something about the building that just intrigued me. And then I realized it was a church, and I was even more intrigued. So I'm like, that doesn't look like a church. So I'm like, what kind of people are in that building? Like, I was really intrigued.
Walking in, worship, the friendly atmosphere, the sermon, the word, prayer, benediction, all that stuff, really it resonated with me. And I felt like I just want to just keep coming back.
When Pastor Rick announced the baptisms coming up for that year, we were both in agreement. We just kind of looked at each other and shook our heads like, yeah, that's what we need to do next.
Yeah.
That, and then membership, and like, this is where we're staying. Getting involved in the community group has been really, really a beneficial thing for us, and growing in my faith. When I look back on my life, about, like I said, all the things I gave him credit for, all the things I know he did for me, and I still refuse to walk with him, but he kept chasing. He never stopped. He knew exactly where I was supposed to be.
I'm a brand new person. The old person is dead. There is no remembering that anymore for me. And so he gave me new life. He gave me a new existence. He gave me a new identity. And I like who I am now. And I love that it's because of him, and it's only because of him. We're the Orrells.
And this is our redemption story.